Okay, thank you. All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to you all. I will turn you over to Tom for our official welcome shortly. But our topic this morning, our theme is finding the sacred in everything. And typically, I think when we think of sacred in our conditioned upbringings, we tend to think of things being sacred as related to religious or holy or something along those lines. But in fact, the current view is much more liberating, and it just really means respect, veneration, reverence for what you have deep feelings for. So I'm really looking forward this morning to hearing from all of our speakers about the sacred in everything. And I'm so glad you're all here on this beautiful spring morning. And I will now turn the meeting over to Tom.
Good morning. Happy Sunday to everybody. And I would like to welcome and thank you for being here. You know, we'd like to welcome you however you are and however you aren't. We'd like to welcome you if you're tall or short. We'd like to welcome you if you're thick or thin. We'd like to welcome you with whatever pronoun you would use to describe yourself. We welcome your ethnicity and your nationality, and we welcome you if you're feeling great or if you're not feeling so great this morning. And I would also like to thank everyone, and I would like to start by thanking the people that are involved in the presentations or the program this morning. So I'd like to thank Nadine, Mary, Lance, Maria, and Rafael. Thank you very, very much for being here with us this morning. And everyone else, I want to thank you, because I'm clear that you could be many other places this morning. And you're here. You chose to be here. So I thank you for that. Your time and attention is precious. One of the most precious things we have. And I'm going to state something that's so obvious it gets overlooked. If you weren't here, we couldn't have this gathering. The only reason we're here is because you're here. So welcome and thank you. Mary?
Good morning.
Morning.
So let's connect the sacred within ourselves with all of creation. Let's start by sitting in a comfortable place. If you have the option to take your shoes off, do so. That will be helpful. Close your eyes and take a few gentle but deep, slow breaths. Now imagine your feet and the roots spreading out and down from the bottom of your feet, deep into the earth, touching the heart of Mother Earth, bringing up that beautiful grounding earth energy. Bring it up through your feet, through your legs, through your torso, and up to your heart. Fill your heart with this beautiful, beautiful energy. And then imagine your crown opening up and the celestial energy coming down through your crown, through your head, joining up with that energy in your heart, the center of your being, and becoming bigger and bigger and overflowing. And then that light of love expands through your pores into a great, beautiful sphere of divine light surrounding you. And you can take that love, that light, as far out as you wish, to yourself, to your family, to your planet, out to the end of the universe. And that's what we're going to do in silence for the next few minutes. Just bring that light to as much of creation as you can. And now that light of love magnified in all its power and beauty is coming back to you, back into your body, into your heart. Feel into that. That light will be with you all day, every day. You can access it anytime you want. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Come back to your room, this place, with extreme gratitude and love. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Mary. Everyone except Lance, who's going to speak next, would you please be sure to mute? That will help with bandwidth and other things. Okay, great. All right, Lance, welcome.
Thank you, Nadine, and thank you, Mary, for that peaceful and powerful meditation. I'm honored to have the opportunity to contribute to today's meeting. I'm a relative newcomer to Knot Church, and most of you probably have no idea who I am or why I'm here. So let me take a moment to introduce myself. I live in Corrales, New Mexico, a small semi-agricultural village of about 8,000 people on the Rio Grande near Albuquerque. But for over 40 years, I've lived and worked on the East Coast in public broadcasting, with an 11-year stint at PBS headquarters in Washington, capped off with 22 years at WGBH in Boston. In retirement, however, I am a passionate amateur photographer, a calling that came after age 50. But I think the most meaningful credential that I can offer this group is the fact that I have known Anna Zimmerman for nearly 65 years. And it's because of her that I am here today. So Anna, wherever you are today, Thank you for inviting me. As Nadine mentioned, our theme for today is finding the sacred in everything. Maria suggested this topic, and Anna, completely out of blue, asked me if I would share some of my thoughts on the subject. For her, it was a leap of faith that I would even have some thoughts on the subject. I mean, how many people spend much time thinking about sacredness? But knowing Anna as I do, I know she's good at leaps of faith. And as it happens, I do have some thoughts, which I'm happy to share with you this morning. Before coming to the theme of finding the sacred in everything, there's a prior question that we need to explore. If we're trying to find the sacred in something, what are we looking for? Just what do we mean when we say something or someplace or some idea is sacred? The term sacred, as Nadine noted earlier, is most commonly associated with religion. And as a result, it comes with a lot of baggage that can obscure an understanding of what the term actually means. But the term sacred is often applied to things or places apart from the religious realm. For example, in the aftermath of the January 6th insurrection attempt at the Capitol building in Washington, many people, news commentators, even members of Congress, referred to the event as an attack on the sacred space of democracy. On the other hand, what one person or group might consider sacred may not be considered sacred at all by some other person or group. For example, in India, cows are considered to be a sacred symbol of life and as such should be protected and revered. In the United States, cows are slaughtered by the millions every day, sacred perhaps only for their monetary value or for their use as the primary ingredient in hamburgers. And interestingly, things that have been deemed sacred can lose their sacred status. For example, in the village where I live, there's a 150-year-old adobe church building that no longer serves a religious congregation. At some point, 40 or 50 years ago, the size of the congregation exceeded the capacity of the building, so parishioners built a larger building down the street. And when they left the old church, they performed a ritual of deconsecration, removing the designation of sacred from the building to allow non-religious activities to occur in it. So we've seen that the term sacred can apply to things or places outside the religious realm, and different groups can hold different things or places to be sacred. And things or places that are sacred can lose their sacredness for some reason. All of this suggests to me that we need to understand the term sacred in a more universal way, and Nadine alluded to that in her earlier remarks. If we can intellectually strip away the religious or other specific associations like democracy from the term sacred, we may be able to get a clearer view of what it means for something or some place to be sacred. And if we have a better understanding of the term, then we might get a better sense of how to go about finding the sacred in everything. To me, a sacred thing or place embodies, illustrates, or symbolizes a value or a standard or a way of behaving that is agreed upon or accepted by a group as being of fundamental importance to the group. In addition, a thing's sacredness is usually ascribed or attributed to a source with power or scale or both, far beyond that of the group that has declared the thing or place to be sacred. In other words, a thing or place becomes sacred when we recognize its relationship to a larger, perhaps transcendent whole that is perceived or understood as something fundamentally important. And that recognition is frequently not just the result of an intellectual engagement. Typically, there's also an emotional element, a revelation, an epiphany that comes with the feelings of awe and respect and humility. When that happens, when we recognize a place or a thing's connection and relationship to a larger good or important whole, we recontextualize that place or thing as being aligned with the goodness or importance of the larger whole, and the thing or place becomes sacred. So if we understand the term sacred in this way, We can then productively turn to our theme for today, finding the sacred in everything. Finding the sacred in everything isn't about waiting around to be gobsmacked. It requires purposeful attention, asking what aspect of this thing or person or idea or place, what can I recognize as emblematic of or symbolic of or an embodiment of something that is bigger than the thing itself and is of fundamental importance or value to me. Sometimes we're able to do this successfully on our own, but sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes we need help in finding the sacred in something. So where can we get help? I imagine that for many of us here at Knot Church, organized religion may not be the first place we turn for help in finding the sacred. Fortunately, there are many other places to turn for help. In my experience, those who help us find the sacred in things are artists, composers, musicians, painters, dancers, singers, philosophers, historians, novelists, and of course, as we are about to experience this morning, poets. So with that, I think it's an appropriate time to turn the program over to Maria to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you so much, Lance. That's a beautiful introduction, beautiful. And I'm very grateful to the particular spin you placed on that. Thank you. It is really a pleasure to be able to introduce Rafael to the group. Rafael Jesús González, Professor Emeritus of Creative Writing and Literature, taught at universities and colleges in Oregon, Colorado, Washington State, Texas, and Oakland, where he founded the Mexican and Latin American Studies Department of Laney College. He was poet in residence at the Oakland Museum of California and the Oakland Public Library, been nominated for a Pushcart Prize 4 times. He's been honored for the National Council of Teachers in English for his writing, 2003. In 2013, he received the Cesar Chavez Lifetime Award, and in 2015, the City of Berkeley also honored him for a Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2017, he was named the first Poet Laureate of Berkeley. I was very honored to be able and fortunate enough to introduce Rafael Jesús González to the Knot Church team. And as part of the preparations for this month, I was asked for any ideas I might have about a theme, which might dovetail with the kind of poetry that Rafael writes. And as I was thinking about this, quite literally in the middle of an email to Anna, I literally heard a voice in my ear whisper the phrase, finding the sacred in everything. And this, in my opinion, is the perfect theme for a session with Rafael's poems. Poet, artist, activist, radical voice of love, Rafael walks softly on the earth and takes a stand for justice in so many realms. Whenever I'm in his presence, whether in person or virtually, I am suffused with peace and joy. I think the best way to introduce Rafael is to borrow his own words from a poem he wrote, in Lompoc Federal Prison after his arrest for peaceful protest. Written in 1983, it's even more relevant today. There must be a revolution of the heart and mind and consciousness. All of the actions we take must be rooted in love and the sacredness of life. Please welcome Rafael Jesús González. Rafael, you're muted.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Maria, for your kind words. A big topic, what is the sacred, and especially finding the sacred in everything. I think we must realize, first of all, that nothing is sacred and that everything is. Sacredness is so difficult to define, but it lies primarily in consciousness. What we hold sacred is that what we choose to hold sacred. And sacredness, more than anything, more than an intellectual concept, it is a response of the heart. Everything that is sacred must be imbued with a sense of awe and of respect. And Mr. Ozier said, in a connection to a wide, wide web of existence of what is. And recognizing that is what makes it sacred. Let us also realize that, from my point of view, not everything is sacred. Those actions and those institutions that threaten existence, that threaten the fabric of being, that is not sacred. And it cannot be made sacred unless it is enlightened, one must say, and that energy is woven back into the fabric of things, into the fabric of everything that exists in a kind of harmony. I guess that's the goal of all the mystics, to find that harmony in the universe. When we say the universe, we cannot escape that what we're talking about is consciousness. Probably the most sacred thing of all is consciousness itself. Consciousness itself is the most amazing mystery, the most amazing thing that we have and that we know. For in it, everything lies. Well, just to say a few things of where I'm coming from and where my writing comes. I must tell you that I was born and raised right on the U.S.-Mexican border in El Paso, Juarez area, and that my writing is in two languages, heir to two muses who speak to me simultaneously and guide me to the sacred, you might say. Lila, a menos que se manifieste en lo relativo, el absoluto no tiene interés. Como en sí es aburrida la luz, a menos que rebote contra las cosas o se quiebre a través de ellas, como en la pluma del pavo real y en el prisma. Vivir es oír los colores, cantar, saborear el tambor y la quena, tocar el perfume del jazmín, la rosa, oler el acero y el ónix, ver el gusto del aguacate y del vino. Solo en la tierra se ama y solo en sus cielos extiende el pavo iris su cola. Lila. Unless it manifests in the relative, the absolute has no interest, as light of itself is boring, unless it bounces off things or breaks through them, as on the peacock plume and the prism. To live is to hear colors sing, taste the drum and the flute, touch the perfume of jasmine and roses, smell the onyx and steel, see the flavor of the avocado and the wine. Only on earth does one love, and only in its skies does the iris cock spread its tail. Lila in the tradition of India, in the Sanskrit, refers to the illusion of life, to the illusion of the physical world, to the illusion that we live in this world of things, mountains and trees and stones. And in some of that philosophy, this is not worth much. One must go to the thing. Though I have studied much of the Sanskrit tradition, I studied under Maharishi Yogi for many, many years. I'm a born-again pagan, and what to me is the sacred is the earth itself, that we cop through our senses and through our consciousness. The absolute takes care of itself. And I think our attention should be drawn to the sacred of the mundane, if you will, the earthly, the lila. In Encanto, dijo un cantor que las tortugas no cantan, pero aún cortejan. ¿Quiénes somos para decir que las tortugas no cantan? Porque no las podemos oír. El sol canta y no lo oímos. La existencia es un enamorar y todo lo que es su canto. Enchantment. A singer said, the turtles do not sing, yet they woo. Who are we to say the turtles do not sing because we cannot hear them? The sun sings and we cannot hear it. Existence is a wooing, and all that is its song. Many times, because we are limited by our senses and by our consciousness, all embracing as we might see it because it's the only thing we have, we miss too many things and assume too much. The scientist is the one that does not assume, nor does the poet. We cannot assume. It is discovered that the sun actually sings, and then we have recordings of the sun song. So limited by the senses they must be, we must refine those senses, and we can. I have friends who can taste the subtle differences in a wine. To me, that's sort of a mystery. And they have to become poets to describe that taste. And a lot of it sounds a little bit stretched to my ears because I have not trained my tongue to taste what they taste. And so it is with music, and so it is with art, and so it is with many things. Sacredness is exploration. well as copy. A very old friend of mine recently died at the ripe age of 100. And this is share with you a poem I wrote for her some years ago, or maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Medicina es el monte. Oh, now let me dedicate this particular reading of this poem to my good friend, Edwin Beerbaum, who I notice has joined us, who wrote a beautiful, beautiful book, The Sacred Mountains of the World. So, hello, Ed, good morning. Medicina es el monte Tamalpais, a Ana Helprin. Es medicina el monte, medicina los árboles y arbustos, la hierba que lo visten, las rocas encantando largas historias en sus voces calladas. Son medicina las nubes que vagan entre las cumbres, y medicina los arroyos y el canto de las cascadas, y el silencio del venado, y el gruñir de la puma, y el parloteo de las aves. Medicina la lumbre del sol que nos calienta, y medicina el aire y el viento, la merced de la lluvia. Respira bien las aromas que las abejas conocen y saborea las mieles. Es medicina también los colores de las flores. Trata de ver por sus ojos y escuchar por las orejas grandes de las peñas. Es medicina tocar en los musgos y los helechos. Todo te llama para el sanar. Bebe profundamente de todo que la montaña te ofrezca. Si la medicina te dice que cantes, canta. Y si te dice que bailes, baila. La medicina es para tu sanar. Medicine is the mountain. On Mount Tamalpais, for Anna Halprin. Medicine is the mountain. Medicine the trees and the shrub, the grass that dress it, the rocks telling long stories in their still voices. Medicine are the clouds that roam among the mount summits, and medicine the streams, then the song of the cascades, and the silence of the deer, and the roar of cougar, and the chatter of birds. Medicine, the fire of the sun that warms us, and medicine, the air and the wind, the mercy of rain. Breathe well the smells the bees know, and relish the honey. Medicine is also the colors of the flowers. Try to see through their eyes and listen with the large ears of the boulders. It is medicine to touch the moss and the fern. Everything, all calls you to healing. Drink deeply of all that the mountain offers. If the medicine tells you to sing, sing. And if it tells you to dance, dance. The medicine is for your healing. And that was written on Mount Tamalpais, where it says, our sacred mountain of our particular area in the area of San Francisco Bay, kind of thing. I don't know how many of you are acquainted with Anna Halpern and the work that she did through her many lifetimes. There was a time back in the 80s, I believe, early 80s, that there had been some murders committed on Mount Tamalpais. And Tana Halpern, who was a dancer and a healer through her dance, held yearly rituals on Mount Tamalpais to purify it, to in response to the violence that had occurred there. And she did those yearly gatherings on the mountain of Healy to the very end of her life. And an amazing woman, to Anna Halpern. So medicine is the mountain. Medicine can be everything, must be everything that from which we gain pleasure and awe and healing. I'll share with you cuento de un árbol. Abuelos, abuelas, los árboles han estado siempre con nosotros y nosotros con ellos. Desde los principios de nuestros principios. La ceiba de los mayas, de los nahuas de Tamuanchan, el árbol de la paz de los iroqueses, el roble, fresno de los druidas, el arbodi de la India, el pino de la China, de Edén, los de la vida y el saber. Cuando no podemos estar con ellos en los bosques, los traemos a nuestras ciudades. Así es que trajimos un retoño de roble costeño de las lomas de esta tierra del pueblo Olone. Los vecinos rodearon el hoyo. Se encendió salvia. Se invocaron los rumbos. Este rojo, sur amarillo, oeste negro, norte blanco, verde arriba, abajo, centro, donde el árbol de la vida se arraiga. Se arrojaron al hoyo cuarzo claro para la armonía, turquesa para la visión, coral para el amar, madreperla para pureza, jade para vida. Y así plantamos el retoño, joyas a sus raíces donde se cruzan dos calles. De eso ya hace un cuarto de siglo. Ahora extiende sus ramas casi de esquina a esquina, guardián, consejero, dador de sombra, para los vecinos ya hechos viejos, presentes a su siembra. Sus hijos, hijas, ahora con sus propios hijos, hijas, los recién llegados y sus hijos, hijas, para quienes nuestro árbol allí siempre estuvo. Anciano, anfitrión de pájaros, abuelo, abuela, nuestro árbol, bendito sea. Story of a tree. Grandfathers, grandmothers, the trees have always been with us, and us with them from our very beginning. The ceiba of the Mayas, of the Nahuas that of Tamuanchan, the tree of peace of the Iroquois, the oak, ash of the Druids, the Bodhi tree of India, the pine of China, of Eden, those of life and of knowledge. When we cannot be with them in the forests, we bring them to our cities. So it is we brought a coastal oak sapling from the hills of the land of the Ohlone. The neighbors gathered round the home. Sage was lit. The directions were called. Red east, yellow south, black west, white north, green up, down, center, where the tree of life is rooted. Cast into the pit were clear quartz for harmony, turquoise for vision, coral for love, mother of pearl for purity, jade for life. And so we planted the sapling. Jams at its roots where two streets cross. That was a quarter of a century ago. Now it spreads its branches almost corner to corner, guardian, counselor, giver of shade, for those neighbors at the planting now grown old, their children now with children of their own, the newcomers and their children for whom our tree was always there, elder, host of birds, grandfather, grandmother, our tree, blessed be. Now the story of this tree is sort of interesting. 25 years ago, on the 2nd of June of this year, it was his 25th year, the Bateman Neighborhood Association, of the neighborhood where I've long lived, was given a grant to landscape a turnabout where the Regent and Woolsey Streets cross. And all the neighbors were asked to forward suggestions, to give suggestions on how to landscape this little turnabout. One thing that was agreed upon from the very beginning is that it had to have a tree in the thing. My proposal was to ring the tree with a low cement wall with a mosaic of the broken crockery and tiles that the neighbors who would build the walls ourselves would bring, and something like a Gaudi-esque kind of concept. Well, the one, the design that was that finally was accepted was by a neighbor of ours who's a landscape architect, and she had a beautiful concept. It would be boulders would be brought in and placed around the tree, and native bunch grass would be planted to surround the tree. And what was brought was a coastal oak sapling from the hills. And when it came time to plant it, they asked me to lead the ritual to plant it, because we were all in agreement that it was a sacred thing we did. So called in the directions, and we actually placed those gems mentioned in my poem at its roots. And now the tree is a magnificent tree that we've had to defend, actually, because the city of Berkeley not too long ago threatened to just cut all the trees that were at the intersection, because they were afraid of being sued because there was an accident, and the defense of this person who was in the accident was that his vision was impaired because of a tree that was in the middle of the road. Well, needless to say, that went by the wayside. Our tree is not threatened. You know, what is it that we call sacred, and how is it that we make sacred? Well, for many times, you know, it was considered that that the poets were the ones who made things sacred. For one thing, in the beginning of all literature, it's always poetry. The oldest pieces of literature, and here I don't mean necessarily the written word, but the word that survives is always praise of the sacred. You go back to any literature, and what it is in ritual, and that ritual is always caged in the words of poetry. Invariably, you cannot study any single language for which this is not true. And it is a kind of holy madness, you know. It is that sacred madness of the prophets. It's the sacred madness that we experience when we fall in love. Sanity has been grossly overrated. And but it has to be a benevolent madness. We all are too familiar with the malignant madness of lust for power and greed. Loco poeta. El poeta loco que es, camina a la orilla del precipicio del significado, buscando una verdad más elevada, esperando que las palabras, como abejas rumbo a la colmena, los guíe a ella. El costal que lleva en una vara está lleno de palabras y trucos, más de lo que jamás usará. La rosa no es solo una rosa, sino metáfora ¿de qué? Lilas a la puerta son abrir, soñador, visionario, loco. El perro del lecho mundano le muerde los talones, le desgarra los calzones, le expone el culo al aire, recordándole de que para lo que busca no hay palabra que cuadre. Fool poet. The poet, fool that he is, walks the edge of the precipice of meaning, looking for a higher truth, hoping the words like homing bees will lead him to it. The bag he carries on a stick is full of words and tricks, more than he will ever use. The rose is not just the rose, but a metaphor for what? Lilacs by the door are April. Dreamer, visionary, fool, the dog of mundane fact snaps at his heels, tears his pants, exposes his butt to the air, reminding him that for what he seeks, no word can fit. And I guess that is the soul of the poet. And we are all poets. We're all poets. We're all users of language. And how we use that language determines our poetics. Just like we are all artists. Yeah, you cannot be human and not be an artist. It's just an impossibility. That's part of our fate of being human. And the only difference is we can either be a good artist or a bad artist. And it means only a conscious artist or a non-conscious artist. It's a matter, again, we go back to the basics of humanity, our consciousness, and our language that manifests it. Primarily language, and of course, action. Of course, how we act. And we have been very bad artists. And it is very dangerous to be a bad artist. Being bad artists has brought us at this point, I think, to the verge of extinction of our species. Because with our art, our unconscious art, we have so affected the earth itself that she may just have to do away with us for her own health and her survival. See, we are the consciousness of the earth. And the earth has possibly made mistakes before. There were creatures vastly larger than us in numbers that millions and millions years ago went extinct. A marvelous, marvelous experience of the earth. And perhaps we are an even more marvelous experience of the earth. And she may just consider us a mistake. Again, it depends upon our consciousness, and it behooves us then to create our consciousness. You may have realized that this poem that I just shared with you is based upon my significator card of the tarot, the Fool, the unknown in the deck of cards, many times the unknown quantity, the card of chance, the card whose meaning and whose value may change, and things. The unknown, the experiment. Well, we near a mark of time of the Earth's revolution around the sun. We near the time of the summer solstice. Loa para el solsticio veraniego. Gloria al sol en las alturas, que llena de regocijo al aire y lo hace dorado. Gloria al sol, fuego celeste que nos da su sabor, su calor. Gloria al sol que hace a las aguas del arroyo, río y mar bailar en destellos y viste de lentejuelas a las olas. Gloria al sol que con sus manos doradas acaricia las piedras, a las guijas y les da a cada una su propio valor. Gloria al sol que las alturas, que con sus lenguas de luz lame a las lomas, cachorros, piel de miel, a las hierbas que las cubren, los robles, las rocas que de ellas brotan. Gloria al sol en las alturas, y en la tierra paz a los hombres, a las mujeres, los niños, los otros animales, las plantas, los minerales. Gloria al sol en las alturas. Praise for the summer solstice. Glory to the sun in the highest, that fills the air with joy and makes it golden. Glory to the sun's celestial fire that gives us its warmth. Glory to the sun that makes the waters of creek, river, sea dance and sparkles and dresses in sequins the waves. Glory to the sun that with his gold hands caresses the stones, the pebbles, and gives each its own worth. Glory to the sun in the highest, and with his tongues of light licks the hills, honey-furred cubs, the grasses that cover them, the oaks, the rocks that from them grow. Glory to the sun in the highest, and on earth peace to men, to women, the children, the animals, the plants, the minerals. Glory to the sun in the highest. And that's what the summer solstice is, when the sun is in the highest. There's a thing. Let me give you one more dedicated to you all. And again, one written at the summer solstice some years back. Bondadoso es el sol, bendición en caso de duda. La hierba veraniega crece pieles de miel en las colinas, manada de leones durmiendo bajo el sol del solsticio, cómodos y contentos, completos. Sea así contigo, indeciblemente seguro, segura, sabiendo que bondadoso es el sol, creándose a sí mismo en ti como campo de hierba en flor y hasta ya madura, estallen semillas, mensajeros emplumados, esparcidos, cada una recuerdo de que eres amado, amada. Gracious is the sun, blessing in case of doubt. Summer grasses grow, honey pelts upon the hills, a pride of Lyans napping in the solstice sun, easy and content, fulfilled. So may it be with you, unutterably sure, knowing that gracious is the sun, creating himself in you like a field of grasses in flower until they, full grown, burst into seeds, feathered envoys flung afar, each a token that you are loved. And may that always be the case, even in your doubt. The knowledge that you are loved, that we are loved. A friend of mine, a very good friend, Matthew Fox, you may be acquainted with his work, a theologian and a thing. It was actually hounded out of the Catholic Church, where he was a Dominican priest and theologian, as a heretic. Praise the heretics of the world, you know. Heresy is always sacred, is always holy. He wrote a book, Original Blessing, And the thesis of the book that got him into so much trouble, it was this notion of original sin. he said that was foolishness to talk about original sin. I said we have to talk about original blessing. He said an original blessing is existence itself. One of the basic questions that philosophy has always had is, why is it that there is something and not nothing? Why is there existence itself? Why is it, and that's the original blessing, it's existence itself. And I know I was brought up Catholic and the thing, and at one time, up into my middle youth, early youth, my intentions were to become a priest, and the thing, until I became a born again pagan, and then I ended up a priest anyway, but a pagan priest. But one thing that we learned is that our first and foremost obligations as human beings is to praise God and be happy. And I think that is the most, our foremost obligation is happiness, is to be happy and to make everything happy. That is the most sacred thing we can possibly do. Healthy and happy. Foremost, if that's the foremost goal of our lives, we can't go wrong. So let me terminate my preaching there at this point and entertain whatever questions.
Okay. Thank you, Rafael, so very much. That was really amazing. I'm going to have to listen to it again when I post the video on the website. I will listen to it many times. That was just extraordinary. And thank you to everyone else who participated as well, to Tom and to Mary and to Lance and Maria. And, I think we all come away today with a better understanding of what sacred means. And I think we've been given some very good clues and guidance on how to bring that into our lives and express it, how to refine our senses. And if we pay attention, we will be able to hear the turtles sing. So with that, I will ask if anyone has questions. If you do, please unmute. Rafael and Lance have agreed to answer some questions. And also afterwards, we will have a few announcements, and I still want to hear from Debbie after questions about our upcoming workshop on the 19th of June. So I'm going to stop yammering now and see if any of you have questions for our amazing speakers today. Questions or comments? I'm sure praise will be gladly accepted. Anybody?
Can I jump in?
Yes,
Can I jump
Arthur.
in? Arthur?
You may, Arthur.
Well, that was so, thank you. That was so interesting. And yes, indeed, if we don't become better artists, we shall go extinct. And, the incredible artistry of our society has gone into creating an old story, a story of, the hero who perseveres against all evil, conquers the other, kills the bad guys, and rides off into the sunset in success. And that old story is now leading us to the verge of extinction as we move toward a new Cold War with Russia and China and threaten the very extinction of humanity as a game of chicken. You know, who'll push the button first so we back down because we'll go extinct. And we so need a new story. And I wanted to ask you about, the new story that I've been working on is a story of world citizenship. The heretic that I did my movie, The World Is My Country, about dared to interrupt the squabbling of nations at the United Nations to call for a uniting of the planet, and a whole new story where it's a story of the collective security of humanity as a whole. And this is my movie, The World Is My Country. I was glad to hear our speaker, who's been part of WGBH in Boston, because our film's been on PBS affiliates Coast to Coast, and we have Martin Sheen and Chad talking about it this Tuesday on MSNBC on Ari's show. What do you think
for
about?
not knowing the name of your film, but would you give it again?
Arthur, would you
The
put
World
that?
Is-
Okay. I was going to ask you to
Yes.
please put that in the chat.
Oh,
Yes,
take me-
I will. And I guess my question basically is, what do you think about a artist creating a new story for humanity above the old story of the hero who conquers evil to collective security and a coming together of the people of the planet?
Well, I, one of the big archetypes that have ruled over us is that of the warrior and the warrior savior kind of thing. And I think that now it is time for us to change the paradigms under which we have lived. And we have to bring an end to the age of the warrior and usher in the age of the healer. And what that's going to require of us is to bring an end to the patriarchal paradigm and to bring in the paradigm of the feminine, to bring in the paradigm of the nurturer, of the caretaker, of the softness that we have associated with the feminine, the healer of the feminine. The patriarchal gods that we have placed in the heavens have not done us much good. We have to examine the myths that we call sacred, and the abstract God, the only Father, and heaven only knows, I've never understood how there could be a father without a mother. Did not
Any
serve
woman
us
would do.
well. Did not serve us well. His injunction, according to the myth in humanity, was to be Lord of everything, including women. To be Lord and Master of everything of creation, the other animals and the thing. And we have followed that injunction, and we have been very destructive of the world. We have not reached harmony with our other creatures that inhabit the earth, that are creations of the earth. We have to learn harmony, and we have to unlearn the patriarchal paradigm that has not served us well. It may have had historically, I will have to think very deeply about that, but it has reached the point where it is not serviceable, it is lethal. And my sisters, you women up there here now, please take over the soon as possible and do it with your full womanness. Don't make the mistake of trying to imitate us. We have to have the feminine caring, the feminine healing, the feminine loving.
Yes. And we have to find the femininity in each of us men.
Absolutely. That's what men's liberation is all about, huh? Finding the feminine and honoring the feminine in ourselves and in the world. Absolutely.
And
Yes.
that's balance. That's all about balance.
It's all about balance.
Anima animus. Hello.
Huh?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think Robert Bly talked about that a lot, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. He does. Yeah.
And we can all be gardeners.
Yeah.
We need to all garden our own earth together.
Mhm.
Gardeners, artists, creators, visionaries. And by the way, it all starts with us in our own hearts, which, you know, that's where we start. And we start with our words and our thoughts and our deeds and our consciousness. And we pay attention and transform what needs to be transformed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think we Americans all need to go to the streets and get our democracy back and tell Congress it needs to reflect, they need to reflect our democracy as well.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think they listen.
No, and I don't think we
We
want
need
to
to
take
force
this,
them.
but can we not take this conversation into the political today, please?
Apologies.
No, it's okay. I know we all want to go there because we're living with the stress of what we're experiencing.
Yes.
And we're in a part of our cycle that is very dangerous
Mhm.
and could have dire long-term effects.
Yes.
And rather than, I mean, I'm one to spend a lot of time bemoaning it, believe me, but I'm kind of done watching it. And I'm trying in my own self to find ways to, as Rafael says, bring some of that feminine healing,
Mhm.
not only to myself, but it has to start with us. And then how to send it forth out and send out that energy of healing and just soak it all out there, soak it, marinate it, get it out there.
Yes. So it's gardening, cooking, and eating
Loving and loving.
while we eat. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
eat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But in order to do that, we have to also own our history to realize where we are. When we talk, let's get back to our democracy. There's no going back to democracy because we've never had it.
That's right.
Let's talk about our myths.
Good idea. Yeah.
And our democracy has been a myth. We are in the process of creating one. If you go back to the very Declaration of Independence, the only ones who had the franchise were male, white, and propertied.
Right.
And that comes back to the very present that we are. But whatever development of democracy has been long and painful and a great sacrifice. And when we say that it starts with us, yes and no, because us is formed of all the forces that are based upon it. So we aren't, the sense of the individual is also a myth. We are formed by the very language that we speak. We are formed by the traditions that come to it, that are ethnocentricity. So are formed with that. We only look at things from a given perspective. And yes, it starts with us, certainly it's individual, because we are the center of the universe, whether we like it or not. The universe has many centers, And each one of us is a center in itself.
Absolutely. But what you said is really important. Before any steps forward can be made, there must be acknowledgement and understanding.
Mhm, mhm. Yes.
And we
yes.
all have a lot of work to do.
And a lot of play to do.
Yes, play, enjoy. As you said, happiness, finding happiness. I mean, ask the Dalai Lama, you know, what is your purpose? Your purpose is to be happy and content. And that requires some gratitude for what is and what we've been given and our consciousness. The amazing fact that we're running around on this little planet, spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour, traveling around the sun, you know, the solar system, traveling around. I mean, it's crazy the speed at which all of this is happening. And here we are standing in our little, you know, homes that we've built and this, you know, kind of tentative world that we've created for ourselves. Meanwhile, destroying our home and our planet. So yeah, we have a lot of playing to do, a lot of appreciating to do, a lot of sensing and refining our senses and smelling and tasting and gratitude for what we've been given.
Mhm.
And then thinking
Right.
healthy. There's a whole new movement going on, going vegan. Apparently there are a lot more, there's a stronger vegan element than I had realized, which is all about being more respectful of our animal life and how we use our land that can help us put in balance, having the sun and the wind be our energy source as opposed to the fossil fuel world. And that's a rebalancing right there.
Absolutely. Ezra Klein, I think it was the New York Times, had a really wonderful
Yes.
article. If you saw that article,
I did,
it was
yes.
really, really great about a very balanced approach, really.
Mhm.
He wasn't suggesting
Yeah.
that everyone go completely vegan. What he was suggesting, and for the planet, what he was suggesting was that maybe for, you know, many things we could go plant-based protein, you know, nuggets and burgers and things like that. And yeah, sure, have a grass-fed local steak occasionally if that's your interest. I personally am not
Yeah.
interested in it, but the planet is going to require that at some point.
And it could be like herd immunity for COVID. If we go 70% vegan, like that's herd immunity for COVID, and do this with vegan eating, we might have resolved our half of our drawdown of the carbon out of the atmosphere, and but then we have to put it in, the balance has to come into the energy side too.
Well, there has to be a lot of balance, yeah. And I think we're getting a little off topic here on the sacred.
I ask, Senor Rafael, what is your practice? What is your daily practice?
What is my what again, please?
Your daily practice.
My daily practice of praising existence. For the most part, trying to be thankful for what is. I spend a lot of time on the computer, responding to the outrages around me, kind of thing, and do as much celebration as I can. You know, sometimes I function with a great deal of anger, because everything I love is being threatened. And that makes me very angry. But by the same time, I stand very firmly that our revolution has to be one founded in joy and in love. And that's the only revolution that is going to work. We have to make a revolution And by revolution, I mean a quick change into a mode of loving and of joy.
No, that's so beautiful, and that revolution of fun and joy. I think it really gives us the key to how we get out of this whole franticness of how can we convince Congress of this or that. Because one of the things that Gary, who is a comedian and a fantastic imp, with the nerve to do these incredible things that we see in the movie The World Is My Country, he helped us realize that, hey, we the people, we're the sovereigns of this planet, and we all want the same kind of thing you're talking about all over the world. All we have to do is come together and ignore these broken states, this broken nation state system, this government that's governing an invisible line drawn on a map doesn't really exist. We the people have to rise above that broken nation state system and do what the Declaration of Independence and all the constitutions say. We the people create government. Let's just go ahead and create government of, by, and for the people of the world that rises above all these divisions and strife and comes together. And that's the beautiful vision of the people-powered planet that Gary lived, and that made me want to devote my life to that movie. And I think it gives us a sense of peace when we realize that, how really, even though they're threatening to destroy our world, the politicians and the direction they're going, if we the people can just rise above that and create something new. You don't, as Einstein said, you never solve a problem at the level at which it was created. We can't fix it within that broken nation state system, the old ideas of what democracy were. We have to create a new interactive way that we the people can govern our world. And that's what we do talk about in our weekly People Powered Planet podcast. And I'd love to have you on, Rafael. You're such an incredible teacher. I'd love to see if we could have you on our podcast as well.
And I want to interject something about our original Constitution. The founders believed in majority rule. This whole fuss about filibuster is ridiculous. This is where we need to free ourselves, as Raphael's saying, we need to be the free individuals coming out with our artist skills, and go to the streets and say our democracy should be majority rule.
Nadine, is it
Yeah,
okay if I?
Yes, I'm going to have, yes, thank you. Hi, Debbie. I'm going to have to put an end. I'm sorry, we're like so over time here. I'm going to give Debbie, and thank you for your questions and thank you for your thoughts. And we could have this conversation for hours, I'm quite sure, and it would be wonderful. And thank you all for your time. But I need to give Debbie a minute here to talk about the upcoming workshop that she's going to do. And we're like almost a half hour over time here. So Debbie, if you would please.
Sure, you got it. First, hi everybody. This is my first time coming to Nut Church. It's really nice to meet you, and Nadine and Lyans and Rafael. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful first Nut Church to come to. So wow. So I am a colleague of Anna's. I've known her for about 15 years, and we attended a spiritual psychology program together. So I'm a professional forgiveness coach. And to me, what better topic to bring up in this conversation of finding the sacred in everything than forgiveness and self-forgiveness. It's like really one of the most direct tools I know to connect inside to that loving, right? To that joy, and to approach each other, see each other through the eyes of love. So this coming Saturday, June 19th, I'm offering, Anna and I cooked this up, a complimentary workshop called The Power of Self-Forgiveness. And I came in to speak at a 8-week class that Monica did called The Power of You. And so we just decided to continue on. So I thought I would actually just take a minute to let you know just a very tiny bit about my own journey and how powerful that self-forgiveness can be. So I had a number of years in anorexia, just not eating. I never went into the hospital, and it got to a point where it was pretty bad. And there was a part of me that just thought I wasn't lovable and had so many judgments about myself. And it was through the skill of self-forgiveness, of really slowing down with the judgments that I placed against myself, against the way that I grew up as a kid. It's like, that's what allowed me to get free. And so it just opened up so much in my own life. It's why I dedicated myself in some ways to this work. And so it helped me to treat myself better. So you can see I'm fairly vibrant and healthy now. And also opened up a whole new career for me. And most importantly, I heard Rafael talk about knowing that you're loved. And to me, that skill of self-forgiveness, of really slowing down with what you're making right and wrong, and releasing that it allows you to give love to that part of you that might not know always that you're loved within. And that's a lot of my own inner journey. So anyway, if you are curious, it's a very practical workshop. You'll slow down with this just real quick, and then I'm wrapped up. We'll slow down with a situation in your life, either with yourself or someone else, where you're out of balance or you're not at peace, and really apply a particular practice of self-forgiveness that you can then use anytime in the days ahead, to open to a happy life. So happiness is certainly a great way. So anyway, I am going to put the link in the chat. It's complimentary. You'll see in the event page that there is an opportunity to donate to La Mission Children's Fund if you would like to just give gratitude for the experience, and the event itself is complimentary. So I'm posting this in the chat right now. Pleasure to be here, everybody. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Debbie, you didn't mention what time it is on Saturday?
Oh, sorry about that. Would probably be helpful information, huh? It starts at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and it goes until 1 p.m. And if you can't make the whole thing, it's fine to come to part of it. Thanks, great question.
And thank you, Debbie. And all of that information is on the tranquilobaja.com website. And shortly, sometime in the next day or so, I will post the video of today's gathering. I will post anyone, Lance, if you'd like to send me your comments, I will post those. I think Mary's gone, maybe. Rafael, if you feel so inclined, if I could have just one of those poems to post on the website, I would love it. If not, that's okay. That would be great, because they were all spectacular. And as I said, I will listen to them many times again. So that recording will be available. I'm going to have to end this wonderful, amazing meeting now. Rafael, many, muchísimas gracias.
No hay de qué, gracias a ustedes y muchas bendiciones.
Sí, a todos. Muchas gracias a todos. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Sunday. We will see you next month here with our theme on community. And I hope you'll join us. Stay tuned for more information coming soon. Thank you, one and all. Special thanks to Rafael and to Lance. It was wonderful gathering today. Thank you. Maria, thank you for bringing us Rafael. So grateful, so very grateful. Could not have been better.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you all.
Goodbye, everyone. I am ending the meeting.
Bye.
Muchísimas gracias, Rafael.
Gracias.
Sus palabras son
And Michael Bash, wherever you are, I'm looking forward to meeting you. I've heard all about you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you, thank you,
Bye.
thank you. Bye, everybody.